Hello, and welcome to Ask Me Anything. I've had a few questions come in already today, so let's get started. Welcome to this Substack note and this Ask Me Anything. I hope it's working. I'm testing it out. As I mentioned, this is the first one. So what we're going to get started with is just kind of my background, how I ended up getting into this, because I think it is a huge part of how treating chronic pain evolves. And when we look at the medical system, how we came through the medical system, having that there's a structure that needs to be fixed. We need to look for that structure that needs to be fixed. And it's a very biomedical system. And we've learned in the last 20 years, and it's becoming hopefully a little bit more common, that pain isn't always just structural. There's a bigger picture that we need to look at. And when I look at my path in that, at the beginning of my back pain that began in about 2011, but really kicked in 2013, with my background, I had my kinesiology degree, so I'd studied biomechanics, athletic therapy, anatomy, physiology, all of that stuff. But at that point in 2013, I had been teaching yoga for backs, specifically for back pain, for 6 years by then, at least. And it was really frustrating to me because I practiced what I taught, and yet I still had back pain. And so I went to my teacher, and Hart Van Leeuwen, he gave me a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van Kolk. And at that point in my journey of pain, the idea that my relationships, my emotions, my stress levels, the bigger picture of how I was dealing with things, the idea that that was playing a part in my back pain, I could not understand that. And it's interesting when I talk to people, because when we look at pain now, the idea of looking at it in that bigger picture is really important. So I fully understand when I go to talk with clients, and I work with clients that have been referred to me, and they're sitting there and going, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not connecting. I fully understand why it doesn't connect, because for me, it didn't connect in the beginning, right? So I got the book. Really hard to read. It's a pretty heavy book when you look at the bigger picture and go, this is everything I have to deal with when I'm trying to fix my back. Can't I just go get an injection or a drug or an exercise and just have it done with? It's not that easy, right? So when we look at the bigger picture, there's a lot of things, puzzle pieces. I like to look at it as a big puzzle, and we need to start fitting the pieces in. Now, some of the pieces are a little bit easier, like the corner pieces, finding the edge pieces. And sometimes someone's pain puzzle is maybe a 50-piece puzzle. But I've also worked with people who have like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and it's been taking time to really fit. Like, we'll get a good section done, and then we have to move on to another section, and the next section is like a bunch of black pieces, and it's probably 50% of the puzzle, right? So those puzzle pieces take time. So when we look at this bigger picture, I was lucky enough that I had another friend who, it was probably about 2 or 3 years later, and I'd been going through the appointments, the physio, the acupuncture, the osteo, the massage therapist, which never worked. Every time I left a massage appointment, it would probably take me 10 minutes to put my shoes on. Same thing after physiotherapy. And continuously going back to the doctor and back and forth. Finally, they referred me to a pain clinic, which at that time, it put me just on a different trajectory of getting the cortisone shot and then the nerve ablation. But over that period of time, a friend of mine pointed me in the direction of Explain Pain. Now, Explain Pain, when I looked at it, it made sense to me because it helped me connect how my nervous system was reacting and how I need to look at that bigger picture through a little bit more of an anatomical lens, which connected to me, apart from just jumping into that your body knows the score or keeps the score book, which was really hard for me to make that connection at the time. So when I started reading more about Explain Pain, started putting those puzzle pieces together, and all of a sudden that 1,000-piece puzzle I was working on turned into like a 250-piece puzzle. And at that time I was watching a lot of lectures on YouTube, right? There's all sorts of information on the internet, just like you're watching this right now. And when you look at all that information, it can get overloaded. Okay. And I was watching one particular lecture and it was stuff that I'd been reading, so it was making sense. But there was a gentleman at the end of that lecture, and I'm pretty sure, and I've tried to go back to find this, but you know how our minds work. I tried to go back to find it. It was a David Butler lecture, and I'm pretty sure he was lecturing to an arthritis society. And there was a gentleman at the end who asked, why does my back hurt so much after, like when my wife's at home or after I fight with her? And it was kind of laughed off, but it connected with me. And I was able to put some of these puzzle pieces together, right? Like those two big sections I'd been working on, and I was able to connect them a little bit and go, when I have a conflict in my life, it isn't tissue damage. It's my nervous system trying to protect me. Okay. Now there's a lot of practice with this. And that was one of those light switches that when it went off, I was like, oh, I had to practice it. Anytime I felt there was a conflict, I had to remember to remind myself and breathe that it wasn't tissue damage that was happening right now. It was a reaction from my nervous system. So a big part of what I do with clients is working on that practice. Okay. Within that, a big part of going through that practice is having patience. One of those patient things is not very easy for me, okay? Even though I've practiced yoga for 2 decades by that point, the idea of having patience was still not the easiest thing. It was way better than it was before I started practicing yoga, that's for sure. So in terms of that, then I started wanting to learn more about pain, especially in terms of the science aspect of it and how things worked. So I took a pain mentorship with Core Kinetic out of the UK. And in that time, it was a 6-month course. And I learned everything from how to read a research paper, different parts of back pain and working with chronic pain from a physiotherapy standpoint, which was really interesting. Finished that, and a couple years later, so I started integrating it all into everything that I did. And I found that the Yoga for Backs classes that I used to teach were still something that was really important in that treatment because it helped to calm that nervous system. It helped you pay attention and acknowledge things without going into that, oh, I'm freaking out. This is going to go into a flare up. I'm never going to be out of pain. And we could work on that. And what was interesting was in 2023, I believe, the book The Way Out came out and I read it. And it's a book about pain reprocessing therapy written by Alan Gordon and Alon Zeev. And every page I read in that, the further I got into it, I'm like, this is how I tie the pain mentorship, the pain science that I'm learning into the critical alignment therapy that I'm working with, that I've been working with for at that point, probably 13 or 14 years, and it really tied it all together. Okay. So with that book, I decided I was going to take my pain reprocessing therapy certification. So I did the following year, which would have been, no, that would have been 2023. So I read the book in 2022, maybe? I'm going to have to check when it came out. Either way, I took the pain reprocessing therapy course and was able to get all those details about integrating everything. And I'm starting to really put the puzzle pieces in, right? So with that, the whole umbrella of everything that I do, you need to look at the bigger picture. But in terms of getting into practicing it, having patience, there's a big mind-body connection with that. And that's the part that requires patience and practice, right? And within that, movement is really the outcome I want people to find, is that confidence in being able to move their body again. Because when you live with pain, the amount of times a physiotherapist, a doctor, an osteopath, a chiropractor, massage therapist tells you, don't move this way. Don't do this activity. Don't do this anymore. Don't do this anymore. Be careful when you do this. You start building this level of kinesiophobia, and it plays into this part of that fear and pain and everything that bundles all up and increases your pain experience. So when you're looking at how the outcome of what we're going to be doing together, if you do want to learn more, the outcome is movement, because we know how good movement is for you, right? But in that process of having persistent chronic pain, you have this level of, oh, I don't want to move. Oh, I can't move. Or you have the flip side of that, where you're pushing through all the time. We're really good. When you have chronic pain, there are certain personality traits that contribute to us living with chronic pain. One of those is that perfectionist, right? That over-helper. So when you start getting some pain, you end up pushing through. And you push through, and you push through, and you push through until your body says that's enough, and it sends you a flare-up. With all of that comes in that idea that, oh, no, I shouldn't move. No, I shouldn't. But we have to start listening to our bodies. All right? So that's one of the things we start with, is we start listening to the body and start working on that kinesiophobia that I mentioned. Kinesiophobia, if you don't know what that is, it is the fear of pain due to movement, which when you think about that, totally makes sense when you're looking at dealing with chronic pain, because we're like, no, I don't want another flare-up. Oh, but I need to get this done. Oh, but I shouldn't move. But at the same time, you might be doing something enjoyable and you don't have the same kind of pain. That's a clear sign that there is a neuroplastic, bioplasticity aspect to your pain experience, right? So we would be talking about that as well. That's kind of where we look at the different red flags of back pain, which realistically, when you look at the numbers, if I was to take 100 people who had back pain, there's going to be 5 to 8 of them that may have those red flags. The rest, they might have structural things like disc degeneration and herniated discs and arthritis and even scoliosis sometimes, where there's a structural aspect that's being blamed for the pain. But there's still a level of neuroplasticity that's happened that has created the nervous system that's becoming overprotective. And the way I see it is, if we rule out the red flags, right, those 5 to 8 people out of the 100, and you have pain for longer than 6 months, I'm looking at it that there is a combination of neuroplastic pain and possibly structural pain. So I look at it from that combined point. So the thing is, I always say, if there is a combination, if you've had pain for longer than 6 months, there's a combination of the neuroplastic pain and the structural pain. Whatever that ratio is, the neuroplastic pain could be 50%. The structural pain might be 50%. It might be 80%, 20%. If we can treat this part, the neuroplastic aspect, and reduce that by 50%, then we can start working on that structural aspect even better, okay? In a safer place, in a place where you're not going to flare up, you're going to be able to move through your day, have more energy, do all the things, okay? So when I look at that whole picture, there's a lot, right? I've been talking about a lot of different aspects of this, and you're going, well, what works best? Just tell me what works best. The best thing that you can do in terms of dealing with this persistent level of pain is learn. Now, when you're living with pain, here's the catch. When you're living with pain, there is a mental load that you are dealing with. Okay, there's that mental load of, oh, I need to get this done. I have kids to take care of. I have family members to take care of. I have parents to take care of. I have animals to take care of. I have workload to take care of. I've got this going on at work. I can't do this activity anymore. I can't do this. I've got to do this. And the mental load of the idea of having to learn or do something about your back pain can increase your pain experience. That's a clear sign that there's a neuroplastic aspect to your pain. Okay. So when we look at that mental load of our pain, and yes, the best thing that they have found through research so far that helps with persistent pain is learning. I try and make it so that it's relevant to you. All right. I want you to be able to understand. So I'm not going to talk about different neurons and different aspects of your different areas of your brain. I want you to understand this at a level that you go, oh, that makes sense. And you can go through your day and be like, oh, my back hurts. But you know what happened earlier? That totally makes sense. And then maybe that light switch goes off in your brain like it did in mine, where I was like, this is a conflict. This isn't tissue damage. This is my nervous system protecting me. So we look at it in that way, and then we start building on it. All right. So in terms of what works best, the best thing that you can do is learn. Now, you don't have to learn necessarily as much as I did. Okay. I dove right into it because that's my fun part, is learning and getting all of this information, putting those puzzle pieces together. But realistically, once you start putting a few of those puzzle pieces together, you'll find your 1,000-piece puzzle turns into a much easier puzzle. All right. Now, what other questions have I had today for this? All right. So how is movement involved? Okay. How much movement should we be doing? I talked about that kinesiophobia, that fear of pain due to movement. So we look realistically, the first thing I want you to be able to do is breathe. We use the breath and we connect it into a sensation in the body. Okay. This is where that pain reprocessing therapy comes in with the somatic tracking. If you don't know what somatic tracking is, just imagine. Well, you don't have to imagine. There's a podcast on my Substack. Go listen to it. It's 20 minutes. It's specifically for persistent pain. Now, instead of that, the somatic tracking is a way of connecting to your body. We're so used to seeing things externally and striving for external things, right? Doing 10 reps of a bicep curl. I want you to take this and move it internally so that you pay attention internally. And that bicep curl thing is a really great example. Not that you're going to do bicep curls right away, but it's in the practice of breathing, that somatic tracking, that you're able to connect and feel safe in your body. So that when you're doing something like a bicep curl, instead of your brain counting 1, 2, 3 until you get to 10 and you're like, okay, now I'm done. Your body goes, okay, I'm feeling a little bit stronger. Okay, this is like the 5th one. It's getting heavy. Oh, now I'm starting to compensate. I'm going to do one more calmly and then I'm done. You might end up doing 5. You might end up doing 15. But you listen internally, intrinsically, as to what's going on in your body. And that's how you connect to that sense of safety. Because as soon as you start compensating and your body's like, oh, you go, wait a minute, that's not where I want to be for this workout. I want to be paying attention. Now, once you get into that and start connecting those dots, if you're doing 15 bicep curls, I'd be telling you to make it a little heavier. Get back down into that 6 to 10 range, because that's where we're going to be building strength. It all depends, of course, on what your goals are. Okay. So that's kind of how movement is involved, because we know if there was a pill that replicated movement and exercise, everybody would be taking it, right? There isn't. You have to do the work. And just as much as you pushed through pain to get where you are, you have to do the work to get out. All right. So in terms of that, how long does this process take? That was another great question sent in. The process itself, like I mentioned, imagine that puzzle. And if you connect a couple dots, the puzzle gets a little bit easier. I've had some people that do the 6-week program and they're like, holy cow, by the 3rd week, they have learned enough and put enough puzzle pieces together that they're like, My kids even noticed how much better I'm moving. They notice how much better my mood is, right? I have people come in and they're like, after 2 weeks, and be like, the people at the dog park watching me walk my dog said, wow, you're walking way better. Now that's not the end of it. There is still a process, but in terms of how long it takes, realistically, it's questionable. It just varies, right? I do still have some people that I've worked with for the last 2 years. They are living way better, and they just come back to me every month or couple months whenever they need me to help fit in a piece of the puzzle that they've hit and they're getting stumbly on, right? So as for how long it takes, I do have a 5-day program. Okay, 5-day program, change your pain. It's 5 days. It's no cost. 5 days can make a big difference. Now, on top of that, if you do notice, hey, this is making a bit of a difference, I have a 6-week program. Okay, the next 6-week program does run in March, and it includes online learning plus one-on-one support. And we would get together once almost every single week. And we do a movement assessment. We talk about your history, your goals, your obstacles. Everybody's puzzle is different. Okay. So when we talk about all this stuff, I put a program together for you, and you start working through the learning and you start doing the program. Now, in terms of the program, yes, like I mentioned earlier, my outcome is that you become movement orientated to build that healthy life and get back into the activities you love doing. However, the beginning of it is breathing. So if right now you're sitting there going, I can't do squats, I can't do strength training, it would throw me off the deep end. I don't have time for that. If you can breathe, which I think right now, if you're watching this, you're breathing, hopefully, okay? Then you can start. All I ask is that you can sit and breathe and pay attention to your breath for 3 to 5 minutes, and that's your starting point. Okay? Now, those are kind of the services I offer. I do offer one-on-one work. Currently, my schedule is full. If you want to get on a wait list to work with me one-on-one, totally message me. We can chat about it first. That 6-week program is awesome. It makes such a difference because the online learning and us talking one-on-one, plus you also, I should say, no matter what you sign up for, right? Like I mentioned, the 5-day program, there's a link for weekly free support. Okay. It's called the Go Get Fit app. And if you download it, you get my professional code. And every week I go in there, and everybody who's active in there, I look at your account. I look to see what you're doing, and I send you a message. And you'll get a message like, hey, you did awesome last week. Here's maybe a new move you can throw into it. Or, hey, what happened last week? Last week your numbers went down. Here's an article or a podcast you can listen to, or here's something that might be a little bit easier that you can add into your day. Okay? So we look at that. And the awesome thing about that Go Get Fit app is it is built on behavioral science. And when you use it, you write in what your effort level was for the activity you chose and your mood, which is great because then I can see all those different connections. So that's one awesome way of getting into this. And I know when you live with pain, financial challenges just coincide with living with pain. Because if you're in that much pain and you're not able to work, there's a good chance you're on restricted finances. That's why I'm determined to make the first few steps zero cost. 5 days. That's it. You spend 20 to 30 minutes a day. There's a video. There's an exercise on breathing, and you start learning. That's it. 5 days. And with that comes that weekly app if you want to use it. Okay. If that works out well for you, we can work into the 6-week program, which is really, you get about 8 weeks of support from me. There's 6 classes to watch, but there's exercises with it. There's videos with it. There's so much support. All right. Now, with that being said, that's the majority of the questions that I got today. Other than that, the last question was, what do I do myself, right? How is my back pain now? And I'll be honest, I still have back pain because I do have severe disc degeneration in my spine. I do have what is it? It's arthritis in my facet joints. I try and forget. If you take one of my courses, you'll learn why I try not to remember what's actually going on in my spine. Because it's a whole connection thing. You'll learn. But in terms of my back, yes, my back does still give me grief in certain things, but I know how to keep my body healthy. I know now that if I'm under stress, that there's actually a positive outlet to that stress. And there's an upside to stress, which we'll be talking about in the 6-week program. And there's just so much more to it, that my life is so much more active than it was. I was told no skiing, no biking, no mountain biking, no running, which is okay because I don't like running anyways anymore, which is the one structural thing that I will say, because I did try and get back into it when my back started feeling better, and it was a no-go. My back was like, nope, you do actually have structural damage here, and running is probably one thing you might want to just cross off the list. That's okay. Cycling, mountain biking, skiing, skate skiing, hiking, walking, whatever else I love doing. All right. So yeah, I do still have back pain occasionally. There's only been one time in the last 5 years that I've had a flare up. And realistically, I know if my back is kind of sore that it's temporary. I know that I will be able to move through it, not push through it, and get back to what I want to do. So I hope that helps you in some way and answered some of your questions. Please, if you want to get in touch with me, please message me at any point. We can chat. Do check out my Substack because I love this Substack platform. I've got articles on there. There's classes on there. There's a subscription on there. It's like $6 a month, $7 a month if you're in the US, which equals about just over $10 a month if you're in Canada. That also gives you support from me. It's got all the articles in there. It's got all the learning. So if you are interested, please get in touch with me. If you have any other questions, there is a lot that you can learn online, but I like to think that everything I've been through, I've written about and created a storyline that helps us learn how this pain experience affects us and what we can do about it. All right. It was great being on here. I hope this works. And I look forward to chatting with you in the future.